How we doing?
How are you doing?
I'm great.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. How much do you, have to reincorporate CD into things, or it's just business as usual with him?
I think anytime a guy misses a couple of weeks, there's early in the week when you're planning things, there's always like, oh yeah, that guy's good at doing this. We've been used to doing it with somebody else or whatever, but not a lot. I think from a player's perspective, you always feel like you got to knock a little rust off, and then from a coach's perspective, you're just trying to figure out, like, all right, are we going right back to what we were doing, or are we going to progress?
You look back on the run game. What do you think he has so many problems just getting going?
We just didn't play to our standard, and from a coach's perspective, it felt like there were just some times where I wasn't putting us in the situation we need to be in all the time, and it's going to happen sometimes. You hate when it does, but you try to learn from it. That's always something that I'm big on, is reflection of saying, like, all right, what if we did it again, what would we do? And those are thoughts and notes that I take for myself.
After the game, I talked about the physicality was kind of lacking some areas. How much do you talk to the linemen and say, hey, we got to get after a little bit more?
Yeah, and I think that's certainly a topic during the game, after the game, and then also trying to find ways on the call sheet, when you're recommending things, to say, well, maybe this one will get us going. We never really found that. There are times where, like, I felt like in the first half of the Giants game, we struggled a little bit early in that game, and then we just, you find something, you hit something, you get a little bit more confident. We just never really were able to do that, so it was unfortunate.
Klayton, Todd Archer with ESPN. Is that rare to not find something?
Yeah, I think generally it is. You're kind of scouring the earth at that point once you get into the third quarter of, man, it feels like we've kind of tried everything. But I think most of the time you're able to kind of find some space and put the back in a position where he's got some. You'd like to say that it never happens, but sometimes it does.
And then with another week of practice for Tyler, the two Tylers, and then Booker coming back, I mean, how much of a benefit is that?
I mean, I certainly think it's a benefit. Those are your starters going into the year, and the guys that stepped in did a nice job in some ways. But, you'd like to kind of be whole, if you will, of just this is where we started. Let's kind of get back to what we were doing and see if we can grow from there.
Nick Harris, Forward Star Telegram. You obviously don't want CeeDee Lamb out for a few weeks, but how valuable has this time been for GP to be able to get integrated with the offense?
Yeah, I think it's been good. I think he's probably much more comfortable than he was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I think it's also been a learning experience for us as a staff to say, like, all right, well, he can handle this, or this is a situation maybe we wouldn't want to put him in again. But necessity is the mother of invention, right? And so when you're forced to say, if you have both those guys out there, there's probably some situations that we wouldn't have been putting him in that we learned from, I guess is my point.
And anything planned for Shotty's birthday today? Are you a prank guy?
No, I think Tyler Boyle's already got him during the team meeting. I had no idea that it was even his birthday until the team meeting. But yeah, he probably would prefer that nobody knew. But yeah.
What happened in the meeting?
I think he just put up like kind of a random picture of him. It was funny, and nobody really knew. Usually we'll get a text message in our coaching group chat first thing in the morning about whose birthday it is, because when you got as many people around here as we do in regards to staff and coaches and players, it's almost every day somebody's birthday. And I would have thought to see that one at about 5:30 in the morning, but I didn't find out till the team meeting.
Tommy Arch, DallasCowboys.com. Through the first 2 games that he's played, what do you take away from what Jaden Blue has done, especially with Miles being sidelined for the rest of the year?
I mean, it's been a really small sample size because we haven't really gotten to a point in a game yet where, we've been able to get him out there on a drive and give him 3 or 4 carries in a row, or quite frankly, just to give him some space to put him in. So I think that's still TBD, and we're certainly going to see as we go just because of the injuries.
You brought up the coaching group chat. Is there maybe somebody that's a little bit more active in there than others, and just what's the climate of that?
Shimko's always got something to freaking say in there, and it's sometimes it's good, sometimes I'm not in the mood for it. So I'm joking. There's a that's not one that we'd want to make public for sure. That group chat.
Yeah. Garrett Podell, CBS Sports. Clayton, you said you kind of, I guess, learned more about George Pickens and what he can handle. What specifically are some things that you did learn about what he can handle in these weeks that CD's been out?
I just think, we were early on a little bit more cautious about moving him around because we wanted him to be confident and comfortable. And there were just sometimes the last couple of weeks when we put him in a situation we were a little bit concerned about it. We went, nah. He didn't seem like that bothered him very much. So I think, it's just maybe that he has a little bit more flexibility than we thought he did in terms of being able to get lined up and accomplish what we're asking him to accomplish without it being a major issue for him.
And you talked about you decide, like, when a player like CD comes back, to go back to what you were doing or kind of progress and build on it. Which way do you feel like you're leaning after seeing kind of what the offense looked like when CD?
I think we're still feeling that out, but I would also say that regardless of who you have playing or what part of the season is, if you're not evolving and moving forward, I always feel like you're moving backwards. So I guess that's my mindset on it.
Joe?
Joe Hoyt, Dallas Morning News. George talked about his time in Pittsburgh, how it was a pretty limited route tree for him. He talked a lot about vertical balls being his go-to. Long story short, when you guys were kind of scouting what he could potentially do here, was the more open route tree kind of part of the potential, or have you guys been pleasantly surprised with what he's been able to handle?
I would say that's part of what we learned the last couple of weeks, just with CD being out, is that he does have more range, probably than we had anticipated. There's certainly, because of his body type, there's going to be certain things that he does better, your typical X route tree. But yeah, I mean, like, he's a lot better with the ball in his hands after the catch than some of the people that play his position or have his body type are. So, yeah, he's shown us a little bit more range in that way for sure.
You've talked about premier looks before. How many premier looks do you get per week, and what's your kind of process for identifying those and then executing them?
Some of that depends on like what facet of the game you're talking about. If somebody is like dead set on making sure that certain players aren't going to hurt them, you're going to not get premier looks maybe in the pass game, and you're going to get a ton of them in the run game. Vice versa, if somebody comes out and they're just saying, like, you can beat us with the pass, but you're not going to run the ball, you're going to get some premier looks there. And a lot of times that lends itself to maybe less pass rush just because you're trying to be really firm with the gaps and playing different coverages. So it's like, I think I said this a couple weeks ago, but it's something that I constantly have to remind myself of, is when you see certain looks that aren't good for something that you're trying to do, there's always an answer. There's always, well, yeah, but it's good for this. And that's something that I try to remind myself of, is the worst look you can get on a play is also a premier look for something else.
Coach Ali Jawad, DLS Cowboys. Obviously, the hope is you have your offense back in full strength this week. But in the last 3 games, Dak Prescott has played, arguably his best football. He's put up some great numbers. What is it that has stood out to you the most about him, knowing those guys have been out, but how well he has played?
I just think that he's in his comfort zone right now. I think that he and Shadi together are in a pretty good groove of, I think he knows what Dak is really good at and what he likes, and Dak's very comfortable with the things that he's calling and the situations that he's putting him in, and it's good to see it, because not every quarterback that comes into this league gets to the point in their career where they can really operate at the level that he is.
We'll finish with Christy.
Christy Scales, Cowboys Radio, 105.3 The Fan. When you turn on the Commanders tape and say 54, Wagner, 14 years in, and still double-digit tackles, what do you appreciate about this game?
Yeah, he's like a mind reader, man. He knows exactly what's happening before it happens, and he's anticipates really, really well. He's a little bit like a quarterback on defense. You go against some of the really veteran quarterbacks that know exactly where they're going with the ball before it gets snapped. It seems like Wagner knows exactly where the ball's going before it gets snapped. He's got incredible formation recognition. It's difficult to muddy up the look for him, and he's like a not typical, because most guys just don't make it as long as he has, but the guys that do, they don't play everything the same all the time. And that can be frustrating a little bit when you're trying to game plan, or if you're a player and you're trying to block him, is he knows how to mix it up, and or just like, when he pass rushes, it's like he's a big, strong guy, and half the time he ends up on the edge. You think he's going to go through you. He's very instinctive and aware of what his pluses and minuses are, and he plays to them.
All right, thanks, Coach.